losing the dignity of our own humanity because we are in a new form of slavery called debt. Surely man is in loss. Why? Because we are not aware of what time it is, not by the watch, the Rolex, or the Timex, but the watch of God's clock. What time is it? We are at the time of the end of white supremacy. We are at the time, no, I want you to listen. I don't need applause. I just want us to think. We are at the time of the end of white domination over the darker people of the world. We are at the time of the end of racism, at the time of the end of sexism, and we are at the time of the end of materialism. So if we are leading people and we are unaware of the time and what the time demands, then our leadership will suffer loss. What time is it, dear leaders? It is time for us to lead our people in accord with the time. Time demands that those of us who have been enslaved be free. Time demands that those of us who yesterday suffered under colonial rule must come out from under colonial power. Time demands that neo-colonialism must never be allowed to be substituted for an old form of colonialism which allows a black face to administrate over the same old plantation system of our former colonial masters. What time is it, dear leaders? And as I reflected on that, I was given a picture from the Bible showing you that the unity of religion is absolutely necessary to the freedom of our people. In most African countries, Muslims and Christians are not in unity with one another. Muslims and Christians are constantly arguing. Tribal differences are destroying national purpose and will. So we have to grow into a kind of knowledge that brings religion together, grows tribe into nation, and grows organization into organizational strength, as Mary McLeod Bethune said, that we need the unity of organizations. What is the picture that I was shown? In the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, there's a story about a baby that came to birth, but the baby was in an open field covered in the blood of the afterbirth. And there was no one present to cut the umbilical cord, and there was no one present to wash the baby that was polluted in its own blood. And there was no one present to diaper the baby. And so the writer in the scripture says, and I walked by and I saw this baby in an open field, and I said, live. Because the baby could not live polluted in its blood, and it could not live without the umbilical cord cut, and it could not live except there was someone there to perform a duty by that child. Who is that child? Polluted in its blood. Did you know, my dear and beloved leaders, that there can never be independence as a gift? No European government can grant you independence. Independence is not given away. Independence is earned through self-development. Please listen. This is how you got here from your mother's womb. Independence couldn't be given to you by your mother. You earned it by developing beyond the ability of the tiny house called womb to hold you in its grip. And when the womb could no longer hold you, your head forged the way for your freedom. And that's what these heads are for. They are to forge the way to freedom of the people who line up behind your leadership, hungering and thirsting for liberty and the pursuit of happiness and the opportunity to express the gifts that God has given them. But what is the condition of the baby? Some of us have been free 5 years, some of us 10, some of us 15 years, some of us 20, some of us 30, but we lay in an open field, polluted in the blood of colonialism, polluted in the afterbirth of what white European, white supremacists have imposed on Africa and on Arab nations. Beloved leaders and guides for the people, when we say polluted in the blood, it means we still live the life of a slave. We don't think like free men. We go to the capitals of America and Europe like beggars, weak to demand or ask for what unjust regimes will never give. Unless we develop power to force unjust governments to yield to just demands, we will never achieve what we desire for our people. The umbilical cord is not cut. All French-speaking countries are tied to France. And the blood of all colonialism is covering all Francophone leaders. I must speak honestly and frankly. Please listen. Please listen. All Anglophone leaders are tied to England. All of us are tied to our former masters in one way or another. And therefore, we don't talk about freedom. We talk about emancipation. Well, what is the meaning of the word? Emancipation comes from two Latin words, or one Latin word, mancipere, which means to free from your hand, but not from your control. You are freed from the hand of Europe, but you are still under the control of Europe. We are free from the hand of the government of white America and oppression and racism in that form, but we are still tied to them in many other ways. And until we can untie and truly cut the umbilical cord and come to a state of real independence, then we are fooling ourselves. We are self-deluded. We have pomp and circumstance of real power, but beneath it there is no real substance. So we pat each other on the back and say nice things to one another to make each other feel good, but each one of us in our own